Hi there and welcome to another episode of the Creepy Froggy vlog, in which we investigate strange and peculiar places and phenomenon. This season's theme is abandoned, and today we are going to take a look at an long abandoned Hillfort. And the location is just outside Vattholma, which is just outside Uppsala, which is about an hour's drive north of Stockholm, Sweden. Yeah, tag along. So what you're looking at right here, all those rocks piled up, is an old hill fort. It's called Salstaborg. And we're gonna take a closer look at this hill fort, but first a few pieces of information. This hill fort is ancient. It was built around between 200 AD and 550 AD. So sometime during the Iron Age of Sweden. It is made of lots and lots of rocks. And the people who built this hill fort transported lots of huge rocks that together form an outer and an inner wall. Let's take a closer look. The distance between the two walls vary, but it is around 10 meters in between those two walls. And the height of the walls also varied. I mean, now they're all rubble, but they used to be about 3 to 5 meters tall. The outer walls, and the inner walls were about maybe 1 or 2 meters tall. And the width of the walls were between 2 and 3 meters. There are two entrances to this hill fort, one in the south and one in the southwest. And inside the inner wall there was a flat surface of about 40 times 80 meters. So roughly 3 to 4 normal garden sizes. Let me see here where I can walk. In Sweden, there are about 1,000 of various types of hill forts, and not all of them look like this. Some of them are embankments. The county where this is situated, Uppland, has around 150 ancient hill forts, so quite a lot of the total of 1,000. And just like this, the typical hill fort in Uppland is made of rocks and built on a sort of mountainous area. Salstaborg was most likely a defensive fortification, and obviously it was built before the time of gunpowder. So it would have been quite easily defended because it was built on top of this hill, and people coming from the bottom up would have been easy prey, or easy targets. So why did people construct all these hill forts? Well, one theory is that during this time period, 200 to 550 AD, the Roman Empire was beginning to be attacked by all kinds of peoples, and then later replaced by Germanic kingdoms. So, there were sort of warring times, really. And I'm gonna find a suitable way up to see if I can show you the way it looks. I mean, from down here, it looks like a pile of rubble. The walls, inner and the outer walls, they were made without any mortar or anything. It was just stones piled on top of each other. And the walls were quite thin comparatively. So it lends reason to believe that they had some sort of wooden constructions too to support it. And that when those wooden beams that, like a palisade of beams that would have supported all the rocks, when they rotted away during time, that all these stones then fell. Yeah. So to construct this huge monument back in those days, it would have taken a lot of resources, both to, gather all these rocks. These rocks were taken from surrounding woods, either on, in the summertime on some sort of transportation, or during the winter time, on sleds. They also had to fell trees and transport them up to, build a wooden palisade. The outer wall were about 250 meters long, and the inner was about 180 meters long. And considering they were about 2 meters tall, they would have been around 52,000 rocks. So yeah, kind of a big feat to build this. So some people have done calculations, and it would have been maybe with 50 people working for 100 days, that would have been 5,000 days of work combined. But they don't know if this was built during a short period or over a few years. You can see here, that's part of the ring, the outer ring. There are two types of hill forts. One that is like an asylum, a place to run to for the local people living nearby in the times of war. And if it was then that kind of hill fort, then they have calculated that with the amount of people living in the vicinity, the furthest out farmstead, for the people living there, it would have taken them maybe 3 hours to ride on horseback to get to this hill fort, to get saved. They have done further calculations to see how many people this hill fort would be able to protect if it was a protective hill fort. The average farm back then had around 6 to 10 people living in it, and around 50 farmsteads. It would have been about 250 people coming here for protection. That would have been sufficient. They would have had around 12 square meters per person. So size-wise, it's big enough. Whether or not they could bring livestock is not sure. They might have had to let the livestock run around free in the forest. And there's no natural water up here, so they would have had to transport both water and food up here. So calculations have been made to suggest that they may have been able to stay here for about a month before they would have to exit and get more supplies. So what you can see here is the sort of inner courtyard bit, the flat area, and here is the inner wall, and down there you see the outer wall. And most scientists have agreed that this was not a protective hill fort, but a strategically defensive one. Because one thing, speaking for that, is that the construction of it is a significantly, it is well made. It was made to last. It would have taken considerable amount of time and effort to build this. So people think, or scientists think, that it was for defensive purposes, to not to bring the local people here, but to protect the area from intruders by having, military personnel sort of defending the area from here. So this is the inner courtyard. You can see the wall right there, the inner wall here, which would have been the innermost line of defense. You can see it runs behind the trees over there, continues over there, and then if I walk towards the wall, you will see the outer wall. These rocks are quite loose. You can see they were not attached to each other. Ooh. But placed loose on top of each other. Okay, so that's the outer wall. And nowadays, obviously, it was abandoned at some point by the people who built it. At some point, it wasn't necessary to maintain it. They left it. The wood that was part of the construction rotted away, so all these rocks just tumbled down. And nowadays, it's a nice place to come for an outing with your family. As you can see here, in the middle of this courtyard, well, actually, at the southern end of the courtyard, I guess around here would have been the entrance, one of the entrances. But there is a fire pit. You can come here, barbecue, but of course you have to make your way up these two walls. Maybe that is the entrance actually, because there's a little trail over there. So you can probably walk down there for easier access to this fire pit. Oh, look at that. It's a great place to come if you have slightly older kids that can walk on these moving rocks without getting hurt, because they love rocks. My kids love climbing on rocks and playing with rocks and stuff. Down there, I don't know if that would have been one of the entrances, or if that just caved in. Anyway, I think it's quite impressive that almost, 2,000 years later, it's still standing. Well, obviously it's not standing the way it would stand from the beginning, but all the rocks are still here. Still, as I make my way down this hill fort, I thank you for watching this episode. I hope you found it a little bit interesting, at least, and that you go out and explore your own local history. Maybe you'll find a place like this where you can barbecue up on a hill, if you can make it up alive. Bye.